Welcome back. You're listening to another episode of the What is Humans podcast with Shane Strunk and Dennis Kluba. Make sure to follow us on our socials, on Instagram at What is Humans podcast, on TikTok at What is Humans podcast, and on YouTube for full episodes at What is Humans podcast. Today, Shane and I are discussing risk is relative. Enjoy.
Hey, welcome back. You're on the What is Humans podcast. If you're new to the show, What is Humans podcast is conversations and personal development where myself, Shane, my co-host Dennis, discuss conversations about everyday life, and hopefully from these conversations, you can find value in them as well. And most importantly, we are
Experts in almost nothing.
What's up, dude?
Hey, man, we've had a growth-filled couple weeks closing out the last quarter of 2023. It has been challenging but rewarding.
Yeah, that's such a positive take to it. And I love that you're my positive counterpart here today.
Yeah,
it's just been busy is all. Just busy. So doing this pod, you do the other podcast, marathon training, full work schedule.
It's everything.
And we also had our first two guests that we interviewed. So they'll be coming out probably in a couple months, maybe. So, but it's exciting. Moving pieces.
Like you said, it's very exciting. It just doesn't come without challenges, struggles. It's
definitely. But excited to be in the seat today. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about risk is relative, and I think that what we just talked about is really a great segue into this topic. Essentially, the way that I thought about this was how when you're first beginning or you're starting something within your own mind and within your actual experience, risk that whatever thing you're going to do, this new endeavor, seems massively risky, either on internal level, like, you might be embarrassed or you might feel like you're inadequate at something.
Sure.
Or on an external level of, if you are doing something for the first time at work or investing in something, it can be very scary the first time you do something.
Yeah.
As opposed to the person that does something for longer, or it's their 100th time doing it, or it's their 200th time doing it.
Right.
That same thing for them is very little risk.
Yep. And it's something you think about, like when you see someone doing that so easily, it's like, how are you doing that? You think it's just like something that came to them overnight.
Right.
But through experience, it's that long-term effort of taking those small risk each day.
Right.
Where it's you push down that fear. Mm-hmm. So where does like fear come into this when we are thinking about risk or even like describing what risk is? Like, doesn't it go hand in hand, or is it?
Yeah.
Is that more of the without fear?
Yeah.
You're taking that risk.
I think the biggest thing was I related to it so much on an internal level of that fear of doing something for the first time. For example, 2 years ago when we released a podcast, and still a little bit, but not really, when we put content out, when we release it, there's a little bit of like, oh, I hope that, that resonates with somebody, or I'm on camera. This, you look back at yourself, you're listening to yourself, you're like, the parts of this are embarrassing, or whatever.
Right.
But comparatively to the first time that we did it, I was way more scared of doing it for the first time.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that fear just gets smaller over time, but it's kind of interesting how like what the relationship between fear and risk and then your exponential growth is as well. Because I still think you made such a great point on like small risks every day, right? But the only way that you grow is through those risks. So it's kind of like the only thing that separates you from the person that's done something 100 times.
Or from the self that you want to be.
Yeah, the self that you want to be is that fear that's like in your head.
Yeah, or like do you allow that to make your decision for you?
Mm-hmm.
Do you let this fear decide or tell you to be small, to not pursue the thing, to stay comfortable?
Yeah. And I'm interested on your individual experience. Do you look at maybe somebody you look up to or a hero that's in the space that you're, you want to take a risk in? Do you see them as, I could never do that? Or do you look at them as inspiration? Like, okay, if so-and-so's done it,
Yeah.
I can do the smallest thing, in that space. And like,
Yeah. Well, it's like so often I think we put people, individuals, like our relationships, the people we admire, like up on these pedestals. Yeah. And from doing that, we think that they're greater than, they're inferior. We don't have it within us. We can never be enough.
Right.
And from doing that, it's like then you'll never even allow yourself the opportunity to pursue that, to try, to attempt something new. Because in your brain, you've already put it as like, hey, that's not possible.
Yeah.
On the reverse side of that, if you see that as a, hey, they actually just worked hard at this thing.
Yeah.
They're not an overnight success. Right. They've struggled, they've failed, they've improved just like anyone else can.
Yeah.
And seeing that difference versus the, hey, this is just a God-given gift that they have, and I don't have, then it won't be possible.
Right. And I think that was such a good point that you made where it's like, if you assume that these people are so godlike, they're so far away from you, you'll never even think about just doing the smallest thing, right?
And that's like if you're living in that comparison thing. But there's also a whole nother side of it of like how you look at your own past experiences.
Right.
Where you can tap into like, hey, I've ran a marathon, or I've overcome this situation. I've done this job. There's many things that you can call back to of like accomplishments.
Yeah.
That you can take as confidence to, hey, I've struggled through this thing. I've overcome, and I can apply this in a similar manner to this situation that's ahead of me.
Yeah. Talk to me too a little bit about, we've talked about this before, which I love this theme when we harp back on it in What is Humans history, is the idea of like childlike
history, the topic,
is like childlike wonder, childlike, kind of recklessness in a good way. Talk to me about how risk changes, like I was talking about time, right? If you do something for the first time, it's different than doing something for the 100th time. But if you ever watch children, they will walk, especially when they learn how to walk, fall a million times. And it's not until age 7, right, that you become self-aware of, are people laughing at me? Are people...
Yeah, or it's like they don't even consider the potential of falling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, that's what's so admirable. It's like you can relate. I'm sure you can find experiences where it's like you don't even consider bad outcomes because all you're focused is on the present of that next step forward.
Right.
And I think it's something that, I don't know, it's going to be hard to practice, for yourself, but I think it's something we should aspire to, is like from that like childlike wonder when it comes to risk taking to enjoying or, pursuing passions. It's like, don't let the fear of falling
stop you.
Yeah. And if you can practice that in some way, good luck.
Yeah. Cause that's what I was going to say. I mean, in all these endeavors in our life, it is so comfortable. And we talk about this a lot too. We are going to prefer comfort over pain every day of the week, naturally.
It's just how we're
wired. Yeah. But the ability to recognize that and be like, I need to get out of my comfort zone. I need to risk a little bit every day. That is exactly what we're talking about of, your hero that you're so, enamored by It's just because every day, or they've done it for 10 years.
Yeah.
They've done that thing for 5 years, and every day they chose to risk a little bit to get better. And all you need to do is get on that same path and you'll be them,
Right.
What
about like habit formation when it comes to taking these tiny risks each day of like getting uncomfortable with this? I feel like we often just fall to our vices, fall to comfort.
You're right.
And you can just kind of get stuck in a rut of doing the same old,
Yeah.
the same thing each day,
Yeah.
where you have your comforts, you have your safety. And why should you risk things? Like, how can we, like, before we even get in the house, let's just talk about, like, what is it about habits of, like, each day practicing a little bit of, like, hey, this might suck, this might be scary.
Yeah.
How should we think about that?
Dude, you know what's funny? And I was a lot of this stuff was very thinking back to child-like tendencies when I was we were coming up with this topic and we've talked about this before as well, but I just think so much about, I don't know where the confidence comes from, right? But for me, I think about the support system, the people around me, and then the habits. And it's like, I just think about my parents as a kid putting in habits that were, it's like, you played sports. It was like before you really knew what you were doing, your parents had you in extracurriculars.
Sure.
And it's like, we talked about this in other conversations where at a certain point you turn the page and you're like, oh, I like soccer. I like et cetera. But in the beginning, they're signing you up for things that are like, you got to go make friends. You got to go take risks.
Yeah. Your environment can absolutely, your child can absolutely shape you into being more optimal in this.
Yeah.
But there's got to be some more modern examples of like, okay, what is like each day on how we can get like a little more uncomfortable. I like think about like why like doing like a cold shower, although it sucks, like, but like by doing that hard thing, it's like it instills in your brain of like, okay, I've done something hard.
Yeah.
This next task is going to be easier. Is it making your bed each day?
Something that's interesting too that actually came into my life at a very random time was I was talking to somebody at a restaurant and he was an older guy, close to 60 years old, middle-aged. And he was a big tech person in California, kind of when the tech bubble was ripping, right? Like 2000, just crushing it. And at 60 years old, he said to learn more and to grow still. I think I told you this. He was taking, in the morning, he'd get up and he enrolled in an AI course that Stanford offers for X amount of money. It's like $250.
Well off already.
Exactly. He's already established himself. He has a ton of money, could retire, do whatever. So similarly with the cold shower, if that's maybe a physical and mental, stimuli that wakes you up, it's a hard thing. We have all of this access and knowledge. Is there a way that every day you can do the smallest thing by watching a 10-minute YouTube video on something that you just don't know well, or maybe you want to learn it? It'll make you feel humbled. It'll make you feel inadequate.
Right.
But if you do that every day, you'll learn how finance works, how AI works, how social media, whatever that thing is that you want to do. We have all the access. It's just how do you get yourself in the habit?
There's many ways to do this.
Yeah,
it doesn't need to be mentally challenging, physically challenging.
Right.
We probably turn more towards physical challenge. Is it studying something new, learning a new language? Like, just find something that can challenge yourself.
Yeah.
And by doing that, that's like that habit that I was talking about of like doing something each day that might not feel comfy.
Yeah.
But it correlates to risk taking.
Yeah.
It will help you when it comes to like taking a big leap.
Yeah.
In your career or life.
Well, yeah. And then, exactly. It's like once you do that, the smallest things at work, in relationships at home, it's like, we can do that.
Right.
The other day I learned how AI worked. The other day I did a cold shower,
Yeah. And it's like, you won't even be thinking about the examples. It's just the, like, It's almost like the dopamine of it.
Yeah, completely. So how do we begin to practice taking those first steps of risk when it seems like our heroes, the people that are around us, are just so good? Like, they're already so good. You know, they're so used to risk that how could we ever begin to get like them?
Yeah. I think we talked about lots of good hows already. I think that one that made sense for me was just like the daily participation of it, of like if you can find something each day to push yourself a little bit, to challenge yourself, to take that cold shower, to go for a run, to make your bed each morning, whatever it is. Like, there's going to be so many different examples. If it's read, 20 pages, like find that like morning routine, daily habits that you can practice. And it will help you take more risk.
Yeah, completely. So small steps, small daily practices can lead to massive change.
Yeah, and just ability to take risks.
Yeah, completely. I think we have to as well reframe our idea around risk, right? A lot of times we focus so much on the downside potential. People will laugh at me. This will hurt.
Yeah.
This will turn out terrible. The people that I've noticed that are the most successful and the most risk averse are the ones that are like, but imagine if it doesn't go bad. Or they're like, they've taken so much risk that they're like, and what if that happens? So how do we begin to also think optimistically of, and if it works, the exponential, upside.
It's like you gotta like highlight the optimist within
Yeah.
you. It's like, how do you like see it for what it is? It's almost like put so much cons on staying status quo.
Right.
Of like, how will you feel if you don't make any changes? You don't take this risk.
Yeah.
Like put the like load up the cons column for how it is currently and look super optimally at what might be possible if you take that risk. Completely. Because there's like, even if you fail, like there is
learning
opportunity.
Yeah. Yes. There's opportunity. There's learning for sure. And then I think,
what about the whole, like, not like viewing these mentors or inspirations?
Right.
Like, should that be one of like within yourself and with others? Like, don't count yourself out. It's almost like don't view them in a way of, they just have that ability.
Yeah.
They just have that gift, and then you automatically rule yourself out.
Completely. I think this whole topic is titled Risk is Relative. You have to put in context relativity to you, relativity to these quote unquote heroes. Don't put them on a pedestal just because they've invested more time.
Right.
Put yourself, be like, okay, we're both just humans. All they did was do it for longer. It's kind of take away some of that emotional baggage that you might carry because you look up to that person.
Sure.
Or you like that person. Be like, hey, at the end of the day, we're both two human beings, two eyes, a nose, and a mouth. Right. I can do this. It's just I haven't started, and all I need to do is start.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Okay, why are we talking about this today?
I don't really know where this topic came to me, but I had this thing playing in my mind all the time about a little kid going up to bat in baseball and thinking like they don't care if they strike out. But if you went up right now and they said, hey, you got to go up and you got to hit a ball. Yeah. You'd probably be a little nervous. You would strike, like thinking, like, I don't want to strike out in front of my softball league or like whatever. Right.
Right. Totally.
And it's just relative. And so for me, it's how can I practice every day that same confidence of my childlike self of I don't care. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. I would say for me, it's like with like a lot of change happening in my own personal life.
Yeah. I
need to see this as that opportunity that it is.
Right.
We we talked, in the beginning of the episode of how busy, I am and how, how stressful it can be. And it's important to see that as like, hey, during these times of change, like I am taking risk and there is opportunity in these risks. So that's my why.
For sure. Let's do a little bit of recap. Sure. So basically today we talked about risk as relative. Essentially, we started to talk about risk in general in small steps and the ways that maybe, someone who quote unquote is a hero of ours, it seems like they've got it all figured out, or that would be a very small thing for them to do. But in reality, for us as what we deem at the time as normal people, it's like, oh my gosh, that would be the biggest risk I could ever take. Yeah. And then we kind of talked about how we close that gap.
Yeah, specifically, we just talked about like doing something habitually each day. Yeah. Of doing something difficult, challenging yourself, if it's mentally, physically, reading a book, hitting your morning routine, whatever that it looks like for you. If you practice that, you are more able to take those risks in life.
For sure. Then we talked about really thinking optimistically. It's so easy and so natural for us to think about what could go wrong.
Sure.
Think about the upside opportunity of that small daily risk.
Load up that con side too.
Yeah, for sure.
Keeping the same. And then the third was really just on how we shouldn't count ourselves out. Yeah. Specifically within yourself, like you've overcome many different things in your life.
Right.
Use that as fuel as, this isn't as bad as you're making it out to be.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's like when you look at inspiration in others in your life, they're not an overnight success. No. They don't have some special skill. And see yourself as able and capable to make that effort to challenge yourself.
So good. Then we just got into the whys. I talked about instilling more of that childlike abandonment of risk. If this goes wrong, who cares?
Yep. And mine was really just a reminder of, challenge and these risks being taken. Yeah. There's plenty of opportunity that comes with it. So that doesn't mean I should let the fear, stop me.
And I think that wraps another week of What is Humans. Thanks, guys.